Yet official summaries failed to carry their names forward. Their victory existed, but remained suspended between memory and recognition. Harry Stewart and the recovery of the record. The story began to reemerge decades later. In 1993, Harry Stewart returned to Nellis Air Force Base and helped bring evidence of the 332nd's victory to the attention of Air Force officials. By April 1995, published records had been corrected to identify the 332nd Fighter Group as the winner of the 1949 competition. Researcher and Tuskegee Airmen advocate Zellie Orr later helped locate the missing trophy in storage at the National Museum of the United States Air Force at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, Ohio. It was eventually placed on public display. Air Combat Command. Recognition arrived nearly half a century after the pilots had earned it. But the struggle to place the victory fully within Air Force history continued. In January 2022, retired Lieutenant Colonel James Harvey returned to Nellis. Air Combat Command unveiled a commemorative plaque recognizing the 332nd Fighter Group's 1949 victory. The plaque was designated for permanent display at the United States Air Force Weapons School. Harvey had spent years seeking proper recognition not only for himself, but for Temple, Stewart, Alexander, and the entire 332nd team. Standing at Nellis 73 years after the competition, he was finally able to describe that mission as accomplished. The men behind the trophy. The victory belonged to a team, but each member carried his own story. Alva Temple had trained as a fighter pilot during the Tuskegee program and emerged as one of the competition's strongest individual performers. His accuracy helped place the team in command of the meet. Harry Stewart had flown combat missions during World War II and later played a central role in recovering the historical record of the 1949 victory. James Harvey continued into the jet age. He later became the first black fighter pilot to fly combat missions in Korean airspace, completing 126 missions in the F-80 Shooting Star and receiving the Distinguished Flying Cross. Halbert Alexander, the alternate, remained an essential member of the team and shared in the preparation, responsibility, and victory. He later died in an F-86 aircraft accident. Their names must be spoken together. Captain Alva Temple, First Lieutenant Harry Stewart, First Lieutenant James Harvey, First Lieutenant Halbert Alexander. 4 men representing an organization that America had attempted to limit, yet could not defeat. The 332nd's final victory as a segregated unit. The timing of the competition gave the victory additional historical weight. The Air Force had begun implementing President Truman's desegregation order. Rather than integrate white personnel into the successful 332nd organization, the Air Force dismantled the segregated unit and reassigned its black personnel throughout previously white organizations. On July 1, 1949, only weeks after the gunnery meet victory, the 332nd Fighter Group and Wing were inactivated as part of the integration process. The Nevada victory, therefore, became one of the organization's final major achievements before its members were dispersed throughout the Air Force. Segregation had created the 332nd because military leaders believed black aviators needed to be separated from white personnel. The pilots then transformed that segregated organization into a center of discipline, combat experience, and aviation excellence. When the unit finally disappeared, it did so not in defeat, but as the reigning champion of the Air Force's first fighter gunnery meet. More than a competition. The 1949 victory was not merely about marksmanship. It was about who was permitted to represent excellence. For generations, white institutions had claimed that black people lacked the intelligence, courage, mechanical ability, and emotional discipline required for aviation. The Tuskegee Airmen answered those claims during World War II. Then, in Nevada, they answered them again. They flew the older aircraft. They faced the elite teams. They led from the opening events. They struck target after target. They won the piston engine category. They won the entire competition. And when the historical record failed to honor them, surviving team members fought another battle to recover the truth. James Harvey later summarized the meaning of the victory plainly. They had been told black pilots were not supposed to fly and were not supposed to win. But they flew. They competed. And they were the best. The Tuskegee Airmen did not ask the nation to lower its standards. They met the highest standards available, and then surpassed the men who had been expected to defeat them. They did not win because history needed a symbol. They won because their training was superior, their teamwork was disciplined, and their weapons struck the targets. The trophy proved it in 1949. The record finally admitted it decades later.